Imagine you are an Iranian drone operator sitting in a cramped, humid control room on the coast of the Persian Gulf. You have been told for years that the Great Satan is a paper tiger, that the United States Navy is a bloated, aging beast that can be brought down by the sheer weight of numbers. You look at your screen, watching a swarm of Shahed-style attack drones, each costing less than a used sedan, buzzing toward the most expensive piece of military hardware in human history. You think you've found the ultimate loophole. You think you're about to humiliate a superpower. But then, something impossible happens. One by one, your drones simply stop existing. There are no explosions, no smoke trails from incoming missiles, no frantic radio chatter from the Americans. Your drones aren't being shot down. They are being erased from the sky at the speed of light. You are witnessing the end of an era, and you didn't even hear it coming. Welcome to the new reality of naval warfare, where the United States has just turned its nuclear-powered supercarriers into infinite ammunition factories. And the Iranian military is finding out the hard way that poking a sleepy tiger with a stick made of steak is a very, very bad idea. On April 19, 2026, the world changed. The USS George HW Bush, a $6, $2 billion monument to American global reach, didn't just defend itself. It rewrote the rules of engagement and left an entire nation's military leadership looking like amateurs in front of the whole world. It all started with a massive lapse in judgment from Tehran. The Iranian-flagged cargo vessel MV Tuska thought it could play a high-stakes game of hide-and-seek in the Gulf of Oman. Intelligence suggested this ship wasn't carrying dates or textiles, but precursor chemicals for ballistic missiles sourced from China. They ignored 6 hours of warnings. They thought the Americans were still playing by the old rules of strategic patience. They were wrong. The USS Spruance, a guided missile destroyer with more firepower than most small countries, decided the talking was over. For the first time since 1988, a U.S. destroyer let its 5-inch Mk-45 naval gun do the talking, slamming shells directly into the Tuska's engine room. This wasn't just a seizure, it was a loud, explosive declaration that the era of restraint was officially over. Naturally, Iran's leadership panicked. They decided to retaliate with what they thought was a mathematical trap. They launched a massive swarm of fiberglass one-way attack drones. These things are cheap, noisy, and technologically primitive, basically lawnmowers with wings. But the math was on their side, or so they thought. These drones cost about $20,000 each. To stop them, a U.S. ship usually has to fire a RIM 162 Evolved Sea Sparrow missile, which costs a staggering $1.5 million per shot. That is a 75-1 financial disadvantage. Iran figured they could just keep throwing $20,000 trash at the U.S. Navy until the Americans ran out of expensive missiles or simply went bankrupt. It was a strategy built on the physics contract, the idea that the U.S. has a finite number of bullets in its gun. But while the Iranians were busy doing high school algebra, the U.S. Navy was busy playing God with the power of the sun. Let's look at the hardware comparison. And be warned, it's not a fair fight. On one side, you have the Iranian drone swarm, a collection of plastic, wood, and low-grade electronics that look like they were assembled in a garage. They are slow, vulnerable to weather, and rely on the hope that their targets will simply run out of ammunition. On the other side, we have the USS George HW Bush CVN-77. This is a Nimitz-class supercarrier powered by 2 A4W nuclear reactors. These reactors don't just move the ship. They generate enough electricity to power a small city. This carrier is essentially a 100,000-ton floating island of pure American dominance. And tucked away on its flight deck, inside what looks like an ordinary, unmarked shipping container, sits the LOCUST Laser Weapon System. Developed by AeroVironment, the LOCUST is the ultimate delete button for anything foolish enough to fly toward a U.S. carrier. While the Iranian drones struggle to stay airborne, the LOCUST system is tracking them with the AV Hollow Pinpoint AI. This isn't your grandfather's radar. This is hardware-agnostic fire control that can pick out the weakest structural point on a drone from miles away. The Iranians thought they were walking into a rock concert where they could hide in the noise. Instead, they walked into a room where the US Navy has the only pair of night vision goggles and a silenced pistol. The LOCUST is a 20 to 35 kilowatt beast that operates on a modular open systems architecture. This means it can be updated as easily as your smartphone, while the Iranian tech is stuck in the 1970s. The Iranians were counting on the US Navy's magazine depth problem. They knew a destroyer only has 96 to 122 vertical launch cells. Once those are empty, the ship has to limp back to port because rearming at sea is a nightmare. But the George HW Bush solved that problem with the flick of a switch. Because the LOCUST is plugged directly into the ship's nuclear reactors, it has an infinite magazine. As long as the nuclear heart of the carrier is beating, the laser has ammunition. And the cost, this is the most disrespectful part of all. While Iran's is spending $20,000 per drone, the US Navy is spending exactly $1.00 per shot. That's the cost of the electricity. We went from a 75-1 financial disadvantage to a 20,000-1 advantage in our favor. It's like trying to win a fight by throwing gold bars at someone who is hitting you with a flashlight. As the swarm approached on that April morning, the Iranian commanders were likely cheering, waiting for the massive explosions of Sea Sparrow missiles that would signal the depletion of the American arsenal. They waited and they waited. On the deck of the Bush, there was no drama, there was no smoke, there was no thunderous roar of missile launches. The LOCUST system is completely silent. It produces no debris and no foreign object damage, meaning the Navy could keep launching FC-18 Super Hornets from the catapults right next to it without skipping a beat. The laser travels at 186,000 miles per second. There is no leading the target. There is no missing. The beam simply finds the drone, dwells on its wing spar or engine housing for 2 to 5 seconds, and induces a catastrophic thermal load. To the drone, it's like the sun suddenly decided to focus all of its energy on 1 square inch of its body. The fiberglass melts, the electronics fry, and the drone simply tumbles into the waves like a bird with a broken wing. This is what the Navy calls garbage collection. The LOCUST system handles the cheap, slow-moving trash, saving the multi-million-dollar missiles for the actual threats, like hypersonic cruise missiles or anti-ship ballistic missiles. The Iranians weren't just being defeated, they were being ignored. Their saturation attack was being treated like a janitorial task. Can you imagine the humiliation for the Iranian operators? They're looking at their consoles, seeing their entire invincible swarm blink out of existence without a single American sailor even breaking a sweat. It wasn't a battle, it was a demonstration. The LOCUST doesn't care about your numbers. It doesn't care about your mathematical trap. It operates at the speed of light and the cost of a candy bar. The aftermath was even more embarrassing for the IRGC. They had to explain to their superiors how an entire fleet of attack drones was neutralized by a shipping container. There were no heroic stories of drones piercing the American shield. There were no videos of brave martyrs, just silent, expensive failure. The US Navy had turned their most sophisticated asymmetric strategy into a footnote. This is the new doctrine of American supremacy. We have reversed the cost curve. We have moved beyond the limits of physics and finite ammunition. The USS George HW Bush proved that if you try to swarm a US carrier group, you aren't just fighting a ship. You are fighting a nuclear-powered god of light that can delete you for the price of a cup of coffee. The Iranians thought they were the ones setting the trap, but they were actually the ones walking into a slaughterhouse. This is why you don't mess with the United States Navy. This is why our technology remains decades ahead of anything the rivals can dream up in their state-funded workshops. While they are building better kites, we are perfecting the art of the infinite magazine. The LOCUST system is just the beginning. Soon, these systems will be scaled to 100 kilowatts and beyond. capable of swatting hardened cruise missiles out of the sky with the same casual indifference they showed to those Iranian drones. The message is clear. Our patience has limits, but our ammunition does not. What do you think the Iranian commanders said to their pilots after watching their entire swarm get erased by a silent beam of light? And how long do you think it will be before every ship in the US fleet is carrying an infinite magazine? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the technology that keeps America at the top of the food chain.